Welcome to the Dodger Download, the official podcast of the Fort Dodge Community School District. Each episode brings you the latest updates from our schools, including school board recaps, interviews with educators, staff, and students, plus upcoming events and stories from around the district. Whether you're a parent, student, or community member, stay connected to what's happening in the Dodger Nation. Let's dive into this episode of the Dodger Download. All right, welcome to the Dodger Download, the official podcast of Fort Dodge Schools. I'm Superintendent Josh Porter, and today's episode is all about the 3 A's: academics, activities, and athletics. Whether you're a parent, student, or proud Dodger, we're glad you are here today. Now, for today's sponsor for today's podcast. Are you looking for a trusted financial guidance close to home? Central Financial Group in Fort Dodge, Iowa is your local partner for insurance, investments, retirement planning with personalized service, decades of experience. Their team is here to help you secure your future and protect what matters most. Whether you're planning for tomorrow or managing today, trust Central Financial Group to be with you every step of the way. Central Financial Group, local roots, smart solutions. Today on Dodger Download, we're excited to welcome two of our guests from Fort Dodge Senior High, Ms. Staci Laird, high school senior high principal, and Mr. Brandon Ruffridge, Fort Dodge Senior High activities director. All right, before we dive into today's topics, it's time for board tidbits. Last night at the board meeting, we approved a contract with CNOS for an athletic trainer. We've had a long-time athletic trainer, Bree Dries, been fantastic for our district, has a couple young kids. If you know the life of an athletic trainer, it is not easy. I have never been in that world, but as a former AD, I see what she does every day. We're really hoping that we can utilize her in the classroom a little bit more next year from a middle school and high school level. But we got to find an athletic trainer first. So this does approve a contract with CNOS to help us hire our next athletic trainer. And so I think we've given all the information to them. We got some good leads, and we'll go from there. Also at last night's board meeting, we talked about the cell phone policy. So mandated, required policy by legislation that we have a cell phone policy in law by July 1st. I think what is probably the best thing that our public probably should know about that is, really in a nutshell, nothing really changes in our district. We already do not allow cell phones to be out from pre-K through 8th grade, from the start of school to the end of the school day. 9-12, we already do not allow them from bell to bell. We do allow cell phones during passing time and during lunch. So those were some big highlights from the cell phone policy. Probably just some new things is, teachers can't use cell phones as rewards anymore per legislation. If you're at an activity or an event, you can be disciplined just as if you're in school for inappropriate use of a cell phone. So we're not saying you can't use your cell phone at a basketball game. Just understand that behaviors on your cell phone can become school issues, and they typically do. So we've kind of told kind of the unwritten rule of school is if an activity or something happens and it disrupts the school environment, then we come involved in school. So sometimes we stay out of things that don't involve us, but if it disrupts the learning environment in school, it always involves our school officials. And Ms. Laird and Mr. Ruffridge can tell you they have plenty of experience in those areas. Last night, we also approved our food service agreement with St. Paul and Community Christian. People probably don't know, but we provide food service for those partners, for those elementary private schools in town. Big one, copy paper. We spend about $25,000 a year for paper each year, which sounds crazy. I think they said somewhere around 10 to 14 pallets of paper will be delivered sometime in July. Our paper usage has stayed about the same, but every year we have to bid this out and get our paper. So that was approved last night. That's it for board tidbits. All right, so let's get to why we're here today. I'm excited to introduce to you my guests. We have high school Fort Dodge Senior High Principal Staci Laird and high school Fort Dodge Senior High Activities Director Brandon Ruffridge, two people that I've worked really close with since the day I've moved to Fort Dodge. I've known Mr. Ruffridge before he was in Fort Dodge. Miss Laird and I worked together when I was activities director, and she was the high school principal. And then as I transitioned to this role last 2 years, we worked together a ton. So excited for you two to be on here today. Let's start just by telling us a little bit about yourself. Maybe educational background, why you're in education, when you came to Fort Dodge, have you always been in Fort Dodge? And let's start with Mr. Ruffridge.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Northwest Iowa kid, Army brat, born in Junction City, Kansas at Fort Riley. A lot of people probably don't know that. Well, my dad was based there. Ultimately ended up moving back to Iowa. Spent my whole childhood here. Sioux Rapids, lived there for most of my life. Storm Lake, my folks divorced, and ended up graduating from Sioux Rapids Rembrandt, which Sioux Rapids, which you can probably talk about a little bit later. But from there, took me a while to find myself. But, you talk about the transfer portal now. I was in it a few times, started at Upper Iowa and ended up at UNI, and then decided to get my act together and went back home to Buena Vista and ended up graduating from there, and student taught in Pocahontas, where my dad and stepmom were at, and that's where I met Carla, my wife, who's a teacher here at Fort Dodge Middle School, 6th grade social studies. And we have 3 kids, Ellie, Shay, and Tice. As far as my work background, I worked at Pocahontas area schools for 27 years. I was the athletic director there for 20. And then the Fort Dodge Senior High opportunity came along, and we were empty nesters. And I'm big on the word opportunity, and we kind of decided to get out of our comfort zone a little bit. And here we are 2 years later, getting ready to start year 3.
I remember that just a little bit. Don't you, Miss Laird?
I do.
Yes, we do.
I'm a Fort Dodge native. Lived here growing up. My siblings and I are all Fort Dodge Senior High graduates. Shout out class of 1990. My dad actually taught at Fort Dodge Senior High for 38 years, Glenn Yanger, and I think he was a huge motivator for me going into education. I don't think so. I know he was a huge motivator for me going into education. My mom was a school secretary with Fort Dodge Schools for 25 years. Our ties run deep. We moved away to go to college. I did Iowa Central for 2 years, and then we went to Cedar Falls. And then I ended up teaching in the Quad Cities for the first 4 years of my career, middle school, 7th and 8th grade. When we decided to come home was soon after we had our first child, and just decided this is where we wanted to raise our kids. So we came back to Fort Dodge. I subbed here for a year, and then I got a full-time job teaching at the high school. 18 years, I taught language arts and a little bit of social studies at Fort Dodge Senior High before moving into the administrative role. All 3 of my own kids are Fort Dodge Senior High graduates. We have 3, Annie, Jake, and Molly, and a almost daughter-in-law come this October, Casey. And my youngest just turned 18, so I'm now officially the parent of 3 adult children.
Yep.
And my husband, Jason, is also a graduate of Fort Dodge Senior High, so lots of connections. We bleed red and black.
Yeah. So you guys are empty nesters. The Porterhouse is not. And so we have a 14, 12, and 8-year-old. And so our whole life is, as you guys remember, having 3 children running around, it is super busy. So I envy it a little bit. They say you'll miss it when it's over. I haven't figured that part out yet. But I was in Algona for baseball on Sunday, and it was like 105 degrees, and we were there for like 12 hours. So while it was enjoyable, it was a little painful at the same time. The heat was hot. Well, let's just get started with a few questions. So I'm going to ask you guys a few questions just about Fort Dodge Senior High in general, academics, some activities, athletics. And we'll just kind of bounce off of each other if there's anything else you want to add. So I really like this question because I think, born and raised here, Staci, we love Fort Dodge.
Yes.
That's one thing about Fort Dodge. Our roots run deep. I did take some time away before I came back. Ruffridge has been here a couple years now. He probably definitely sees that. He sees those ties and those relationships and how important they are. So I love this question for just a simple fact of what makes Fort Dodge Senior High unique compared to other schools that you've either worked in or maybe you've learned about or had experiences with?
I don't have experience in a lot of other schools, just the one other district I worked in. But one of the things that makes you Fort Dodge unique, I think, is the deep sense of pride. I think Fort Dodge has a long history of feeling like an underdog in some situations, and that makes us feel extra proud of our accomplishments and the things that we do well. Fort Dodge is a special community, and people help each other out and stick together, and I think that's one of the things that makes us unique.
Yeah. Mr. Ruffridge?
I guess the thing that I always tell people when they ask me that question is the number of people that come back to Fort Dodge, the number of staff that we have here that I talk to that said, I asked them, where'd you go to school? Fort Dodge. And that's something that really has always amazed me in the 2 years that I've been here. So when I look at a lot of our students, and I don't know a whole lot of them that well yet, but a lot of them that I do know, their parents, their grandparents walked the same hallways that they did. And like Staci said, there's a lot of generational pride in this town.
It's nice to be able to tell people, whether we're interviewing for a job or giving tours of the building, we were gone for 7 years. We chose to come back.
Yeah.
We looked at a lot of different places. It wasn't our initial plan, was not to move home.
Right.
But as we started visiting communities and sort of interviewing them and figuring out where we wanted to live, it just dawned on us one day, we're looking for a place like Fort Dodge. So maybe we should just go home.
Yeah. I loved growing up in Fort Dodge.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. And I know that probably the people that I met over the 14, 15 years where I wasn't here were probably annoyed because I always probably found a way to tell them I was from Fort Dodge because I wanted people to know that. And I always wanted to come back home. Just the timing was never right, for a long time. I always thought I was going to come back and coach at Fort Dodge. This is where I was an athlete. Like, this is where I went to school. And then, then I had young kids and I met my wife, who wasn't from Fort Dodge, and just took me a little bit to find a way. And then the AD job came open and it was like the perfect storm, and our kids were the right age, and now they love it. Like I said, my kids absolutely love it here. My wife loves it here. So the thing that I've probably realized the most and that people don't really know, which I think makes us unique, I really think we think outside the box at times. People may not always see it on the outside, but I just think about what we're doing with health occupations. I mean, we have really developed a streamline of health occupation courses from 6th through 12th grade that if you talk to other superintendents in other schools is almost unmatched. So if you haven't seen some of that, go to our Facebook page, check it out. There's tons of pictures. We just developed a lab at the middle school. I think we have 2 staff members at the high school now, 1 staff member at the middle school. I mean, we've really put a really good emphasis on building that workforce. We know that Unity Point is a good partner of ours. We know that Unity Point really probably appreciates the fact that we're really getting kids interested in health occupations. And I don't even know if we really did it as much as the staff members that took those roles have really kind of escalated kids' thoughts and processes. And now we have all kinds of kids interested in all different areas of healthcare.
Yeah. Unity Point is one of, if not the largest employer in the community.
Yeah.
And I think it was a lot in response to that and knowing that a lot of our kids are going to go on to work for them in some capacity.
Yeah, and some schools might not think that that's your role, but our role is to provide a good quality workforce. And Unity Point is a business that we hope we can contribute and provide with good quality employees down the road. Whether it's now or then, they take Iowa Central courses for a couple of years, get a specialized degree and go out there, or whether they go right to Unity Point.
Or whether they leave and then come home later.
100%. All those things are on the table. Yeah. All right. Next question. So, how do academics and activities work together just to support student growth and some success? So I'll let either one of you, whoever.
Well, I think, the teachers, the coaches, they're all trying to work together. The kids are learning how to think. They're learning lots of different things, lots of different life skills in the classroom. And then you also take the activities outside of the classroom, and I think they're learning a lot of the same life lessons, that are preparing them for life later on. A lot of different things like that.
One of the things that we say over and over to our incoming freshmen is get involved.
Right.
Research shows, and we know from experience, that if you get involved in even one club or activity, your odds of being successful at Fort Dodge Senior High skyrocket. Right. For one thing, being involved in a club or activity or a band or choir or a sport, it's built-in community. You get to know kids who have the same interests as you and their families that have the same interests. And it just gives you a sense of community and a sense of purpose. We know that students who are involved in activities do better academically. We know that their attendance is better. Graduation rates are higher. So yes, activities and athletics, you learn all kinds of important skills about, sticking with things and working hard and practicing. And but that community, I think, is one of the most important reasons.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Former activities director, that was my previous role before coming to Fort Dodge as well. And the ability for students to get involved. The one thing I also believe is just we have so much to offer. We have so many clubs, so many activities. We're so strong in fine arts, so strong in some areas of our clubs, and our club participation is higher in some and lower than others. Just depends on what it is. But we rarely deny a student the ability to create a new club that can gain some interest and get some members and someone to oversee the club. And, even in athletics, you just see it. And, while everybody would love to be better or win more, that's not what it's all about. But we do offer some really, really cool things here at Fort Dodge Senior High.
That was one of the things, when we were talking a little bit earlier, was the word opportunity. And one of the things about Fort Dodge at our high school is all the opportunities that our kids have. We talk about 30 plus clubs and all the different sports that we have. There is something for everyone here.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what is one thing that you wish more families or the community members understood about our school district?
Well, for me, I'm typically one of the first to arrive and usually one of the last to leave because of the role that I'm in. But, on top of that, I just see all of the other staff members, the custodians, the administrators that are putting in the hours of overtime trying to make things better at our school. This is not a 9-to-5 job. And I don't know if the outside world always understands that, but we could go on and on about all of the different things that we do outside of our position. But I think that's important for people to understand, is that we're in this for kids, and I think all of us are trying to do what we can to make kids succeed and help them become productive citizens later on when they get out of high school. And, and then lastly, like I said earlier, one thing that I don't think people understand is all of the opportunities that our kids have. I think that's huge. We do have something for everyone.
I would echo that. I would say that, I would love people to know how much our staff cares. We have an incredible staff at Fort Dodge Senior High, well, in the district, but they care so much about our kids, and they care so much about preparing them for the future. And they do. They put in a lot of hours and a lot of heart. Yeah. And they feel our kids' successes and want everyone to be successful.
One thing that I would probably add to that a little bit, just from my view, because I get a little bit different view now, right? Is there's 3 people sitting in this room that oftentimes have to make really difficult decisions, right? Whether it's a staffing one, whether it's a student discipline, whether it's staff discipline, whether it's rain cancellations or snow, those things are really difficult in the scheduling. And I think if there's anything I would want people to really, really know is that there's no 3 people in this room that care more about the safety of kids and doing what's best for kids and trying to support everybody and even our staff, that no decision is taken lightly. And sometimes they gut wrench us more than they gut wrench everybody else, right? And so student discipline is not something any of us get excited about, or staff discipline. It is part of the environment that we work in. But if someone asked me, I would just say, hey, we take everything into consideration. We care a lot about the impact on the kid and the families and our students. And so sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, but we do appreciate some grace every once in a while from the outside, because sometimes, we can get beat up pretty easily, especially in this world. So, Staci, have a couple questions just for you specifically. We're talking about academics a little bit. What are some priorities as we head into the next school year? It's the summer. Everybody probably thinks Staci's on vacation. Maybe she's not in the office, not doing anything. But Staci is a year-round employee. So, the work doesn't stop. There's a lot of planning, especially at the middle school, high school level. It's a little bit different. So what would you say are some top priorities for you as the head principal as we get ready for 25-26?
So we have 2 building goals that we're working on in a 3-year plan. One is literacy, and the other is working on teaching executive functions and employability skills in all of our classrooms. That learning has sort of lived in homeroom up until now, maybe in a lot of our CTE classrooms, but we have, as a building, decided that those are skills that we really want to be teaching in every one of our classrooms. So our staff spent some time last year working on looking at those employability skills and breaking them down and thinking about how to teach and how to assess those. And that's some of the work we're going to be diving into next year. So we're excited about that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and literacy, people probably get tired of me talking about it and saying it, and even our admin, but we do know that is a lifelong skill. We know
it's
that
core, yeah.
The data across our nation just shows us that proficient readers are more successful, graduate at a higher rate,
Absolutely.
more employable in the workforce. And so we know that at Fort Dodge, and what's best for our community and our school district, which is why we're here, is improving those literacy skills. And so everything else is important. We love all the other areas. I was a fine arts teacher. I taught phys ed. I loved it every day. I would have never thought about literacy, but now I'm the superintendent, and now I'm like, okay, we got to shift. And so we know that's important. And our admin they're probably feeling it a little bit because we talk about it a lot.
I never get tired of hearing it. You're talking to a former English teacher here.
True.
So literacy,
that is true.
We want our students not to just be able to read, but to be readers.
Yes.
Because we know the effects that has on all aspects of their life.
Yep, absolutely. What would be the best advice for a new student that's coming into the high school? Or, we have 250, 60 eighth graders coming in to our building next year. If there's just one thing you really would advice that you would give them, what would that be?
Well, we already hit on the whole get involved piece. So that would be my first piece of advice. But my second piece of advice is be there. Yep. Attendance. And we preach this a lot to our incoming freshmen too, but for a very good reason. If you are there, you're going to be successful. It's attendance that gets in the way of success more often than anything else.
All right, Mr. Ruffridge, what role do extracurricular activities play in the development of leadership and life skills?
Well, I've always said that, activities and athletics play a huge role because you're learning so many different life lessons. You take, for instance, you're learning how to deal with fear. Like I had a fear of coming into this podcast. This isn't something that's really in my comfort zone. So you learn how to deal with fear. You learn how to deal with failure. You learn how to deal with frustration in a lot of different activities. You talk about fear. I remember taking speech class, and I was totally freaked out to get up in front of everybody. But that helped me a little bit. I still am not very comfortable in those situations. But again, it goes back to all of the different lessons you learn with activities. You learn how to be a teammate. You learn discipline, you learn sacrifice. So I've always been one to say, you learn a lot from all of the different activities, and they're going to help you later in life.
Yeah.
We're trying to build better people in the activities that they're in, but we're also trying to make them better people when they leave Fort Dodge Senior High.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to a student or a student athlete that's just maybe on the fence about participating, or the feeling that they just have a lot going on and they want to break? We've seen it through the years, right? I got a young daughter that's in 3 or 4 sports right now, and I don't know if she wants a break yet. I'm trying to encourage her not to take any breaks yet. But what kind of advice would you give to, some kids that feel maybe they just got a lot going on, or they maybe don't want to participate in anything?
I think that's normal. I think it's normal to feel overwhelmed as a high school kid because you have so many different things getting thrown at you. But you're not alone. There's lots of different people that they can come and talk to, myself, principals, counselors. There's all kinds of resources for them to reach out to if they're struggling. You know, I think by being involved, you're going to go through some tough times, but you have to learn how to grind through tough times. Right. You know, tough times don't last, but tough people will, or tough people do. Yep. And so I think that's important to instill in some of these kids. And, you know, and like for me, being involved, that helped me get through school. I wasn't the greatest student in the classroom. I wasn't the greatest on the court or on the field or wherever else. And you don't have to be, but being involved, it's really important. And also I think that, you know, by being involved, you're going to remember some of those great games that you were a part of, or, you know, like our kids, the musical is such a huge thing here. Those kids are going to remember those experiences, probably more so than a test that they did really well on or a test that they didn't do so hot on. Yep. So that's what I'd tell kids that are on the fence. I mean, get involved. You're going to make some great friendships, relationships, you know, just those sorts of things I would tell them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that because one of my, you know, I wrestled here at Fort Dodge. Wrestling has always been a big thing at Fort Dodge, and everybody would probably like to identify like the successes. But what I remember most was about my team and Ed Birnbaum, who you guys know, or Mr. Birnbaum. I can't really call him Ed very often, but Coach Birnbaum. I've had a lifelong relationship with him now that at that time, I never knew was even going to happen, but tons of respect for him. If I need advice or just someone to talk to, or if I need help at the middle school, like he came in and helped us this year. So you always build a connection that you never know that down the road that's going to be really important to you. And that's what happened to me just a little bit, because similar to you, like I went to school, I was always in attendance. I wouldn't say I probably tried as hard as I probably should have, but you know, I think the activities and athletics part got me through high school, and what actually probably pushed me to go to college. All right. Hey, last couple questions here, guys. Bond referendum is in November. So each episode, we've kind of touched on that just a little bit. This is a lot of improvements for Fort Dodge Senior High. So both impacting both of you a lot. Why are these upgrades important when we get to November 4th? And what would you want to share with people that just about our facilities and why passing this would be important to our district?
We have parts of our building that haven't been touched since I was in high school, which has been a bit. And we just want to provide the best experiences we can for our students. And some of it, the infrastructure pieces like the heating and cooling system, it isn't something that's flashy, but it's hard for students to learn if they're not comfortable. And when we have classrooms that are really uncomfortably hot or too cold in the winter, you know, it distracts them from their purpose for being there. So some of the infrastructure pieces are just important for that. The changes that would be made to some of the CTE classrooms and shops, we want to be able to provide our kids experiences that are up to industry standards, current industry standards. And some of those spaces are nowhere near current industry standards. Yeah, right. So the CTE classrooms, they have this great new equipment and not necessarily the right structure, the right ventilation for it, the right electrical. Yeah. And so we want to take those classrooms into, you know, modern day so that our kids can get experiences that replicate what they would see in the workplace.
Yeah, the one thing I would add to that piece a little bit is the lighting, right?
Oh,
Who would have known lighting was a big deal? Yeah. But there is a big difference if you go down to our English or our social studies pod, which have been renovated a little bit, the library, really nice areas of our building. But then if you go up to math and the special education rooms, and the lighting's just different, right?
Absolutely.
And without doing a project like this, it's really hard to fix all of that at the same time.
Well, I'd spin off of what Staci said too. You know, we want to try and give our staff the best resources possible in order to help our kids be successful later on too. And so with the world evolving faster than what we can keep up, we need to try and do the best we can and give them the resources that they need to make our kids successful later on.
Yeah, I look at our band program, who we're looking at. I think Al told me like 20 or 30 more kids than what we've had last year. We're reaching that 125 to 140 kid mark participating in band. You look at the little theater, that is just, I mean, it really nice little space, but really needs some definite upgrades, from curtains to lighting to sound to seating. I think about the weight room, right? It was built in 2001. It just, you wouldn't think it's too small, but at this point, the proper heating and cooling in there as well becomes a factor with rust. We're just a day of age where that bigger space allows for just so many more things for our coaches, our directors. The band room is just a beautiful room, but it just needs some upgrades, right? You can just tell that we haven't done anything with it. The choir and vocal rooms are very much the same way.
We have a beautiful building, and it's so unique, and the architecture is this beautiful mid-century modern. We just need to be able to bring it up to standards so that a whole bunch more generations of Dodgers can walk those halls and have great experiences there. Yeah.
Well, we may not need this part or not, but what gets you most excited about these upgrades?
I guess it's kind of like getting a new bike. I mean, it's really exciting, and for our community, it's about making a commitment to our kids and all of the kids that are going to be future Dodgers. Giving them the best opportunity possible and the best facilities that we can give them. I just think it's exciting to possibly know all of the different types of new things that we're going to be getting.
When our kids can see that they care enough about their experience to commit to it and say, yes, I want you to have good facilities and I want you to have things modernized and updated. And I think that's meaningful for our students.
Yeah. One thing that gets me a little excited about all of it is, one, I've got to talk to a couple of classes at Fort Dodge Senior High a little bit. Well, then they've seen the pamphlets, and we had those 3 young men with me last podcast, and they've seen some of the projects, and the kids get really excited. And so I think when we feel like we're doing what's best for kids and kids get happy, that's what I get most excited about. Also, we're just in a time where everything matters, right? Like, people move to town, they're shopping for schools. Right. I mean, you get a lot of choices in where you attend school anymore, where your family lives, where you go. While there are parts of it that are beautiful, we can have the best teachers and some of the best staff and admin in there and doing all the right things. But man, nice shiny objects, really attract people this day and age as well.
And not just families, but that's something we haven't talked about, is attracting staff.
Yeah,
we're in a time when it's a little harder to hire teachers and staff than it used to be, and it's nice to be able to bring them into the building and show them the quality facilities, and again, show them that, hey, the community believes in us and invests in this.
So any final thoughts or anything else you guys would like to share?
I guess for me, Josh, I just would like to take the opportunity to thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. It's, again, I got out of my comfort zone, but it's been a massive learning experience for me, being a small town kid, coming to Fort Dodge. But I truly enjoy it, and I really enjoy the people that I work with.
Yeah.
I love this job. I love our kids. I love our staff, and it makes the hard days a little less hard and the good days a lot better.
Yeah. And you kind of started the role at a weird time.
I started this role in the 1920 school year, so the year we shut down for COVID in March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been a whirlwind, but
it has
probably had a feeling as if one of the best years yet last year.
Last year was Last year was a good year.
Quite the year, yeah. Well, good. I think every year that we get to work together, it always makes things just a little bit smoother. Everybody's strengths, weaknesses. You know where you need to support. Yeah. You guys know where I probably need some help, and I always appreciate you guys. You're just not going to meet two administrators to staff members that just care so much about kids, put in countless hours, always putting kids first, sometimes before our own families, and so to a fault. And we've done that over the years, and unfortunately, or fortunately, that's part of the business. But I appreciate that from both of you, and hopefully you do get some time to relax and take a few breaks this summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again today, we want to thank our sponsor, Central Financial Group. When it comes to your financial future, having the right team matters. At Central Financial Group in Fort Dodge, we offer expert guidance in insurance, investment, and retirement planning, all with a personal, local touch. Our experienced professionals are here to help you plan with confidence and protect what matters the most. Central Financial Group, trusted advice right here in Fort Dodge. I'm excited. Next episode, we are going to have Erin Kirtley, the director of the Iowa High School Girls Union, the Iowa Girl. So she is a great role model. I've known Erin for a really long time. She's a former activities director. It's probably kind of weird that we're going to bring on somebody from the state into a Fort Dodge School podcast, but we host 2 high school state events here. State softball's coming up, and she will be here. The other piece of that is we're going to have LJ Mell here. So LJ Mell is a Fort Dodge Senior High junior, going to be a senior, who is on the student advisory board for the girls high school athletic girls union. So really excited to have both of them on here, just to talk about all things Fort Dodge and Fort Dodge schools. And I know the Iowa Girls Union really appreciates our partnership, so I'm excited about that episode. All right, up next for the schools, as regional softball and softball pairings will be out, district baseball pairings will be out. Both teams have had a pretty successful summer. Looking forward to seeing those pairings. That's the path to the state tournament for everybody. And everybody kind of gets a little bit excited and a little bit nervous at the same time. So probably some things to share around the district. We have congregate meals still going on at Duncombe Elementary. So on the north side of the elementary, if you are a student or a family that has kids aged 3 through 18, you just walk up there, you tell them your name, you put down your kid's age, and you can get free meals. So starting next week, I believe that happens on Tuesdays and Thursdays. When you get your meals on Tuesday, you get it for Tuesday, Wednesday. On Thursday, you get it for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So a great opportunity. I think we served 1,426 meals last Thursday, the most we've served yet. So we provided a lot of food for those students and those families in Fort Dodge, and it's for anybody. So anybody at any time can go do that. July 1, school registration starts. That's a big time of the year. We encourage all new families. If you're new to Fort Dodge or just moved into Fort Dodge, you come in and enroll in person. So starting July 1. And then if you are a returning student, you just get online, you'll get the emails, check your email, check the portal, and get on Infinite Campus, and you can re-enroll for next year. Always like to encourage everybody to subscribe, listen, follow us on Facebook, social media, Instagram, Twitter. We have all those awesome social media accounts. Thanks again for joining us for the Fort Dodge Schools podcast. Be sure to follow us for more stories, updates, and board tidbits. Until next time, go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers.
Thank you for listening to the Dodger Download, your source for all things Fort Dodge schools. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share with your friends, family, and fellow Dodgers. For more update and resources, visit us at fdschools.org or follow the Fort Dodge Community School District on social media. Until next time, keep showing that Dodger pride. This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. 800-878-8026 or visit our website at www.spinmarketwith2ks.com.